What up, everybody? InstructaBeats back again here with another ratio lesson. Today we are back to the garage using the unit rate to solve problems. So let's get the car in the lift and take a look underneath at what our objective is today. Our objective today, I will be able to use my unit ratio in order to solve real-world ratio problems. All right, so the basics today. Today, all we're doing is we're just taking something you already know, the unit rate, and showing you how it can be another tool in your toolbox to help you figure out real-world ratio problems. But let's start just with some numbers. All right, so here we have two equivalent ratios, right? So let's say that, in the garage, there are 2 wrenches, right, for every 3 spark plugs, right? So assuming the same ratio, how many wrenches would there be if there were 30 spark plugs? So a lot of times when you get a question like this, it's very easy because you can use the scale factor here to help you out. All right, so if I'm changing 3 spark plugs to 30 spark plugs, right, that's going to be multiplying by 10, which means I need to keep the same multiplicative relationship between the first ratio and the second ratio. So I need to multiply this by 10 as well. And so if there were 30 spark plugs, there would be 20 wrenches, right? Sometimes you get an easy one like that where the scale factor is nice and friendly and you can see that multiplicative relationship pretty easy. Sometimes you have 2 ratios, right, where the scale factor might not be easy to see, but you can see the rate. So let's keep it in the garage, right? And let's say that there are 12 spark plugs for every 4 tires in the garage. So if there were 30 spark plugs, how many tires would there have to be? So here the scale factor isn't as friendly, right? You don't automatically see that multiplicative relationship between 2 different ratios, but you can see that there is a relationship in the rate, right? In the same ratio between the spark plugs to the tires. So if you're going from 12 to 4, right, you divided by 3 or multiplied by 1/3 because we know ratios are multiplicative relationships, which means I need to take 30 and multiply that by 1/3, which again is the same thing as dividing by 3. And you're going to get the answer of 10. So if there were 30 spark plugs, there would be 10 tires. Again, an easier example to solve because you had the rate to help you out, right? You could very easily see that relationship within the same ratio. But sometimes you get a problem like this, right? So let's say for $4, you can buy 5 spark plugs, all right? So assuming that same rate, how much would 16 spark plugs cost? So we're looking for the price of 16 spark plugs. But when you're looking at this, right, we can't use scale factor because there's not a nice multiplicative relationship, right? It's not like 3 and 30, which is times 10, right? We don't have the basic fact knowledge for 5 times what equals 16. There's also not a nice multiplicative relationship within the same ratio, right? So it's not like up here where 4 is 1/3 of 12, right? We don't see that relationship right there. So for this one, we're actually going to use our unit rate tool. We're going to add a second step in here, and we're going to find the unit rate, or because we're talking about money, it'd be called the unit price. And so let's go ahead and set up our ratio. So I'm going to use this is going to be my unit rate right here in the middle. And then I know at the end of this, I want this to be 16 spark plugs. And I'm looking for how much money that would cost. So this is dollars, right? This is spark plugs. The first thing I want to do is figure out, okay, what's my unit rate? How much would 1 spark plug cost? Because if I can find out how much 1 spark plug costs, then it'll be easy to find out, okay, how much money does 2 cost? How many does 15 cost? How many does 16 cost? How many does 99 cost, right? If we find this unit price, the rest should be pretty easy. So obviously to go from 5 to 1 right here, right, I multiplied by 1/5. So I'm going to use that same scale factor here. And 4 times 1/5 is going to be 0.8 or 8/10. Now that I know the cost per 1 spark plug, like I said, it's easy to find out any number of spark plugs. Because now all we're doing is we're going to multiply that by 16, which means I need to multiply this by 16, right, to keep the same multiplicative relationship to make sure it's an equivalent ratio. And 8/10 times 16 is going to be $12.80. So this is what we're doing today. We're going to be adding that extra step to find that unit rate, or it could be a unit price if we're talking about dollars, right? And we're going to use that tool to help us solve our real world problems. So very similar to what we've done in previous lessons, except now we're going to use our unit rate as kind of that middle step to help us find the information that we need. Let's take a look at an I do problem. All right, so our I do problem, it says the IB Math Garage has to order parts for a job. They order from parts.com, which sells its parts at the same rate. On the site, 4 parts cost $195. How much would 7 parts cost? Okay, so my statement's going to say 7 parts would cost blank dollars. So again, the important part is that we're assuming the same rate. So on the site, 4 parts cost $95. So I'm going to go ahead and keep my dollars over my unit, right? So I have $195 over 4 parts, right? And this is assuming the same rate. Okay, how many would 7 parts cost? So I don't see a friendly relationship right here between the two scale factors, right? 4 turning to 7, I don't know how to do that very easily. I don't necessarily see one between 195 and 4. So what I want to do first is I want to actually set up and figure out what my unit rate is. What is my cost per 1 part? So I set this back up. I use the same ratio. All right. And I want to figure out, okay, hey, how much does 1 part cost? Then I can easily turn that into 7 parts, okay? Right here, obviously, I'm going to divide by 4 or multiply by 1/4 as my scale factor. So if I do 195 times 1/4, I'm going to get, for 1 part, it costs $48.75, right? So $48.75 per part, or per 1 part. Now I have my unit ratio. Very easy. I just need to multiply each of these by 7, right, to figure out how much would 7 parts cost. And my answer is $341.25, okay? So you can see how easy this problem is if you find out your unit rate. Let's take a look at a we do problem now. All right, our we do problem. Okay, so this is IB Math Garage has to order more parts for a job. They order from a different website now. Now they're ordering from carparts.com, which sells its parts at the same rate. On the site, 4 parts cost $39. Okay, so either a cheaper website or a different type of part, right? How many parts can be purchased with $54? So this time, they're actually giving you the money that you're going to spend and asking for how many parts, whereas for last question, they gave you the amount of parts and wanted to know the money. So my statement should say, blank parts can be purchased with $54. So the important parts right here, right, are that it's the same rate, okay, and it costs 4 parts for $39. And you want to spend $54, okay? So I'm going to set up my ratio. Again, I'm going to keep cost over a unit just because it makes sense to me that way. So I'm going to do $39 for every 4 parts. You could do 4 parts for every $39, and you're going to get the same answer if you do the correct math. So $39 for every 4 parts is going to have the same rate as $54 for how many parts, right? That's what my question mark is. Now again, I don't see a nice relationship between the and with the rate or the scale factor. So I'm going to rewrite this to help me find out my unit rate first, right? So $39 for every 4 parts equals some unit rate, and I want to use that to figure out, hey, how many parts can I have? So for this one, I already know the amount of money I'm going to spend at the end, which means I need to turn my dollars into 1. I need to find my unit rate for, okay, how many parts could I buy with $1? So to do that, right, I needed to divide by 39 or multiply by 1/39, which means I need to do the same thing here to keep my equivalent ratio. And when I do that, I'm actually going to get a decimal, which is okay. So for $1, I could get 9.75 parts, okay? This right here is my unit rate. Now that I figured this out, I could figure out how many parts I could buy for $54. I could figure out how many parts I could buy for $1,000, for $98. Doesn't matter. Now that I know my unit rate, I can solve any type of question. Because obviously to turn 1 to 54, I multiplied by 54, which means I need to do the same thing down here to keep my equivalent ratio. So 9.75 times 54 means that I could buy 526 whole parts and half of another part, okay? So again, using my unit rate to help me solve this problem makes this a lot easier. It's just another tool in the toolbox. If you know proportions, you know how to cross multiply, that's great too. We just haven't gotten there yet, but that's also a strategy if you know how to do that. So when I come back and write this, I could buy 526 and a half or 0.5 parts with $54, assuming my same rate. All right, so our you try problem. Our you try problem says the IB garage loves itself some popcorn. That is correct. The best ratio, okay, to make the best popcorn is 11 ounces of kettle corn mixed with every 5 ounces of buttered popcorn. All right, so if we wanted to expand that recipe, how many ounces of kettle corn would we need to mix with 92 ounces of buttered popcorn? So in a second, you're going to go ahead and pause the video. You're going to try it all by yourself, and then you're going to push play to check your work to see how you did. So go ahead and pause the video, and then push play when you're ready to check your work. So hopefully you at least paused it and tried it. Whether you got started and wrote your statement or whether you solved the whole thing, that's all right, but let's check your work. So my question is, how many ounces of kettle corn would we need to mix with 92 ounces of buttered popcorn? So my statement's going to say, we would need blank ounces of kettle corn to mix with 92 ounces of buttered popcorn. So I know the best ratio is 11 ounces of kettle corn to 5 ounces of buttered popcorn. And we want to know, okay, wait a minute, what if I had 92 ounces of buttered popcorn? So if I had 11 ounces of kettle corn, okay, so 11K for every 5 ounces of buttered popcorn, that would be equal, okay, because again, we're keeping a ratio here to make it taste delicious, question mark kettle corn for 92 ounces of buttered popcorn, right? So here are my two equivalent ratios I want to use, or my proportion I want to use to help me find my missing kettle corn. I don't see an easy relationship between 5 and 92, and I don't see an easy relationship between 11 and 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my unit rate to help me figure this out. So I'm going to rewrite these ratios, there we go, with 5 buttered popcorn equal to my unit rate. Rewrite this one down here with my question mark. So again, a lot of times we're like, hey, which one should I turn into 1 for my unit rate or my unit ratio? Well, you know 92 down here, which means we want to turn the buttered ounces of buttered popcorn into 1, because then we can just go ahead and multiply that by 92 at the end. So how did I turn 5 into 1? I multiplied that by 1/5 or divided by 5. When I do the same thing right here, I'm going to end up getting 2.2 or 2 2/10, okay? Now you have your unit rate, okay? You would have 2.2 ounces of kettle corn for every 1 ounce of buttered popcorn. Now you can solve any question, right? Now the question we're looking for is, what if I had 92 ounces of buttered popcorn? So now I just need to multiply each of these using a scale factor of 92, and I'm going to get 202 4/10 ounces of kettle corn as my answer. So if I had 92 ounces of buttered popcorn, I'd want 202 4/10 ounces of kettle corn to keep that delicious ratio. So hopefully you got that one right. If not, it's okay to fail as long as you learn from it, okay? You can always go back, rewatch the video, find someone else's videos, right? Do anything you need to do to make yourself awesome at math. Thank you so much for checking us out today. We know there's lots of different options online. We appreciate you spending your time with InstructaBeats. We would love for you to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know where you're watching from. Check out all our merchandise and videos at InstructaBeats.com. Again, thank you so much. InstructaBeats out.